All right, we have a very special guest joining us today. He is someone who is making waves in wrestling, and if you haven't heard of him, crawl out from under the rock and fire up Google. He is the best around, and it's our honor to have TKO Ryan joining us right now. TKO, how's it going, man?
What's up, guys? I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks for having me, man.
You know how these interviews work. For a lot of people out there who may not be quite familiar with TKO Ryan, it's now time for you to kind of let us know a little bit about you. First of all, the thing that we always like to know is, have you always been a fan of professional wrestling?
Yeah, man. I've been a fan of professional wrestling my whole life. The same as pretty much anybody else who gets into wrestling. For me, it may be a little bit different because, I guess, pretty much around the time all my favorites came off the TV, and I was getting into that age where, I was a teenager and I was chasing girls around. Like all of a sudden, I wasn't watching wrestling as much, but I was always keeping an eye on it and watching over it. And ever since I kind of rekindled my love for it and really actually became a wrestler, like I said, I'm back and watched all the stuff I missed. And now wrestling's really my life, man. I can't imagine going about it without it.
Who were some of your favorites, though, growing up? Anybody in particular?
If you watch me actually wrestle, I think, like one of my favorites growing up, I was a big Ric Flair fan because when I was a little kid, and I'm talking like 4 or 5 years old, my godmother's mother, who I don't know what relationship that is to me, but I always called her Nana. Nana used to watch wrestling on TV, and I had no idea what she was watching back then, but she was a huge Ric Flair fan, and so, when I'm 4 years old, 5 years old, and she'd be watching it, and she'd call me over, and she'd say, "That's Ric Flair, you like him, he's the best, there's nobody better." So I was kind of led on at an early age to be a Ric Flair fan, and then when I was old enough to make up my mind for my own self, I was a huge Stone Cold Steve Austin fan, and I really loved Goldberg too, because he was like the unbeatable superhero.
Definitely.
As I got a little older, I started to like the more technical style wrestlers as I got a little bit older, because I feel like it kind of comes to the age when you're younger, you really like the big character guys, like the Ultimate Warriors of the world stuff. Then you get older, you start to appreciate pro wrestling a little more, I think, and you start to look at the guys that can really get it done between the ropes, in addition to having some great characters. So that's pretty much it, man. As far as being a fan goes, big Ric Flair fan. I graduated to the Stone Cold, the Chris Jericho later.
Tell us, was this a popular decision with your family when you said, "Hey, I want to be a pro wrestler"? Was there any pushback from mom and dad or anything like that when you told them?
They don't really understand what I'm doing, even to this point now. My parents are not smart to the pro wrestling world. I watched a lot growing up, and my dad would, just acknowledge it, but he never really paid attention. He doesn't really understand what pro wrestling is, and I've tried to explain it, and he's kind of old and stubborn now, and he doesn't really want to hear it, So basically, there wasn't really any pushback. There was the typical, "Oh, you're going to hurt yourself," if they were right. But they said, really, sort of an indifference at first. Over the last couple of years, now that I'm involved and I've clearly shown that there's no stopping me and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, I think they kind of realized that, pushing against me isn't really going to have any effect. So they've actually, in the past couple months anyway, they've actually kind of made a bit of an effort to try to figure out exactly what it is I'm doing and show a little more interest. And, my mom's still my mom. She can't help herself. She finds out if I do something good for wrestling, she's got to tell all her friends about it, even if she has no idea what she's talking about. She's still got to brag about her little boy.
For people that are listening right now who may be also trying to get into the business, how did you go about finding the right school once you made a decision? I know you're based out of the Northeast, so there's a lot of good schools there. How did you find the place that you eventually started to train at?
Dumb luck, honest to God. Pretty much my entire career, it's been a series of right place, right guy, right time, and I like to joke around and say I've Forrest Gumped my way through this whole process. I've managed to just sort of be involved opportunities with the right people who happen to be doing the things that I want to be doing, and here I am. But as far as getting started goes, it goes back to my high school baseball coach. I bugged him a bunch about how to get started, and I actually asked him if he'd train me because I had no idea really how it works, and I assumed that's what you did. You found a wrestler and they trained you. But eventually, after bugging him enough, he coughed up the number to Ryan Drew, who actually is the guy who trained me along with Nick Steele. As a matter of fact, if you live in the Massachusetts or southeastern Mass area, those guys over at the lockup, they do a hell of a job training a new student and beyond. And I would suggest anybody who gets started, the first thing you got to do is find a good school in New England. I mean, there's Lockup, which I mentioned. There's the XWA Wrestling Kingdom, which is a new school run by Matt Taven and Mike Bennett down in Rhode Island, which would be a great place to get started as well. And then there's also Brian Geary's place in New England Pro Wrestling Academy up north a little bit in Andover. So it's pretty good schools in the Massachusetts Rhode Island area to get started in. Outside of that, I don't have too much knowledge of the training stuff. But for a new guy, I'd say find a good school and be prepared to listen and learn and to do a whole lot more than you probably think you have to first.
Definitely. Now, for someone who's never been inside a pro wrestling ring, how would you describe the training that you guys go through? Because I played football, I played lacrosse. I understand that kind of working out for that, but I mean, pro wrestling is a whole different universe. What would you describe to somebody, like I said, if they've never really wrestled before? What's the kind of training that you have to go through in order to just to be a pro?
It's very cerebral. And I think it might be surprising to hear that because you'd think it would be very physical. And it is. I mean, wrestling is the most physical thing I've ever done in my life. And, I mean, I played Division I baseball, and I was a full-time catcher. And being a pro wrestler is so much more physical than that. But the training of pro wrestling, I'd say, is very cerebral, and it can be very frustrating. And the sort of things that we do to train, when you first start, you're going to learn. It's like learning how to play basketball. Like, you're going to teach somebody who wants to learn how to play basketball, how to, dribble, shoot, pass. You're going to teach them the basic, footwork, that sort of stuff. And that exists in pro wrestling too. There are fundamentals, but the part of the training that's the most valuable to a new wrestler or anybody in general is the mental aspect, the knowing, like, the why, not just how to do what you're doing, but why you're doing what you're doing, and learning just the how a wrestler thinks and how a wrestler reacts and things like that. That sort of stuff can be very, very frustrating to learn, and the only real way to learn it is to just keep doing it and give it time and patience. And in that regard, I'd say that the most intense training aspect of pro wrestling is the cerebral mental portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you also wrestle for Northeast Wrestling right now. They're a great company out of the Northeast. You just had a very busy weekend with them. How did you actually get involved with Northeast Wrestling?
Again, right place at the right time. So I was actually working on the ring crew for Northeast Wrestling just to kind of show my face and meet Michael and Marty, the promoter up there. And to kind of, shake hands and kiss babies, things you do to get noticed and hopefully get someone to give you a shot. As it turned out, they had a show where they had a cancellation or they had an injury or something of that nature. And next thing you know, they had an opening. They were looking to give a guy a shot. I just happened to be showing up a whole bunch. They knew I was around. They knew I came from a good school, and I had a few people who have some name value in the area kind of, put my name over a little bit, saying, give this guy a shot. They did, and I got a match against Lucas Sharp, who's kind of like a New England veteran. He's been around the area a little bit, and he did a great job for me in the ring that night. And next thing I know, a year and change later, I'm sitting here talking to you guys, and I'm working with those guys all the time.
Definitely. What do you think separates Northeast Wrestling from, any other independent promotions that you have worked for?
I'd say one of the biggest differences is the variety of shows that Northeast Wrestling runs. They kind of hit both ends of the independent spectrum, where you had the big shows with all the stars that bring in thousands of people, and that you get to meet names, you get to meet the Hardy Boys, and Ric Flair, and all that sort of stuff, which is awesome. But then they also come back and have a monthly show in a little building in Bethany, Connecticut, every month that has a dedicated fan base of 300 odd people who show up all the time. The fans know exactly what's going on. They all have their favorites. They have signs that they make for their favorite wrestlers, and it's just this almost like family reunion-esque atmosphere. So I guess really that's kind of the difference with Northeast is you get the big time, the sort of the star-studded shows, and you get that intimate atmosphere where you get to be the star yourself, and it's an awesome environment to learn in. It's given me an opportunity to be in the ring with some of the best guys in the world, some absolute legends like Jushin Thunder Liger, Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy. Those guys are around and they're available, and I've got to work with them through Northeast Wrestling. So it's a wonderful place to work, and I'd suggest any fan out there who hasn't seen it, buy tickets to the next show and be there, man, because if you haven't seen it, you're missing out on something special.
Now, for some wrestlers, a championship is their ultimate goal. You've been in Northeast Wrestling for a little bit now. What are some of your goals moving forward for not only Northeast Wrestling, but just your professional wrestling career in general?
So in professional wrestling in general, I want to be a wrestler. I want to be a full-time, 100% hard-working wrestler. I want to travel the world. I want to work for different promotions all around the world and just kind of filter my way up the ranks and make as much of a splash as I possibly can. I guess really in that regard, I'm a lot like everybody else. I just want to put my name out there, have quality matches, and make some money, hopefully, and just be in it. It's a passion of mine.
What has been the most surreal moments in starting this journey into pro wrestling for you? Has there been one moment where you stood back and said, "Wow"? I
wrestled Rhino, and we wrestled for a promotion called XWA. Based out of Rhode Island, and it was actually for the XWA Championship. And at one point in the match, me and Rhino spilled over the guardrail and basically just turned into a melee in the crowd, and we went up in the bleachers and through the chairs and knocked over guardrails and things like that. Just, made a mess of the place. And as, Rhino's punching me in the face and I'm flopping around onto some bleachers, I'm thinking to myself, 13-year-old me is freaking out right now. I'm in basically a street fight with an ECW legend. It's surreal. This is the first time I had been in the ring with a name, so to speak, which Rhino certainly is. And here I am, having basically a street fight with a guy who's known as one of the most hardcore dudes that's ever been in the ring. So it was, that was definitely surreal. And then another time, me and Vinny Marseglia tagged against Hardy Boys, and that itself was just crazy. Looking across the ring, and there they are, living, breathing, and we're getting the full effect. It's not a one-on-one scenario. We're getting the real deal, the actual Hardy Boys, and anytime you can get in the ring with guys you watched on TV, and you sort of wish you could do what they were doing growing up, and then here you are doing it. Not just doing it, but doing it with the guys that you wanted to do it in the first place. That stuff's it's pretty cool, man. That's the real moments.
Absolutely. Now, the independent wrestling scene has been something that a lot of people have been talking about that seems like, it just keeps getting better out there. I know that you really, like you said, you kind of came in a little late to the game, but have you noticed the changes being made from when you started till even now? Has it seemed to have been getting better for you even though you haven't been in it that long?
Well, it's definitely getting better for me for a lot of reasons. But I guess independent wrestling in general, you said it best. I haven't been around too long, so I can't really speak to this wide-reaching, broad change. But paying attention to the guys that have been around and stuff. I hear about it all the time. They say that independent wrestling is better now than it's ever been because there's more talent and the houses are better, and it seems like guys are making more money and there's more opportunities. And the internet, it's been a blessing and a curse for pro wrestling, in my opinion. But the great thing for guys like me is I'm able to send a match of mine to a promoter 5 states away, and he sees it in 2 minutes. And, the match that I had last week is already available to be viewed online and things like that. So, like, I guess the growth and everything, I mean, from what I'm seeing and observing and hearing about and listening from the guys that have been around, I mean, it sounds like everything's on the up, and, that's a good thing for everybody who loves pro wrestling.
What have you learned the most during your time in the ring?
Yeah, there's no guarantees, and nothing's forever. So basically, as a pro wrestler, take advantage of every single opportunity that can get possibly put in front of your face. And if the opportunities aren't getting put in front of your face, find a way to put your face in front of the opportunities. Because I'd say that the one thing I've really, really, really learned is that, like, no one's going to hand you anything in this, and that you got to have to go out and make the effort and do the things that that have to be done, I guess, to advance as a pro wrestler. So, I mean, I guess, like, I've learned so much because I had so much learning to actually do when I started, because I felt like I was so behind in my knowledge of all things pro wrestling compared to some of the things I've been exposed to now. But that one piece of information is just forever drilled in my head that, like, if you want it, you got to go get it. It's not just going to fall in your lap in this business.
All right. Now, being able to be in this business, like you said, you've wrestled alongside guys like Mike Bennett and Matt Taven. A lot of these people have came through the indies and are now huge successes, whether they're in WWE and TNA. Does that make it seem, all worth it for you? Does it make it seem more achievable now that you see other colleagues and peers doing it?
It does. It 100% does. It makes it worth it because I see the emotions and reactions and things like that they go through when those things happen to them. And it seems more attainable because I see them, and I'm learning from these people who are, going on to be on TV and do bigger and better things. So it's, to me, if you knew me at all, you'd know, like, I don't doubt myself about anything that I do. And when it comes down to my own confidence in myself, coupled with somebody who I trust doing really well and giving me the same information that they have access to, like, to me, it takes a huge, weight of the world off my shoulders. I don't have to figure it all out on my own, and having that, like, support group of both people who are advancing, people who've been around, people who maybe necessarily aren't advancing but have so much knowledge to give, like, the combo of all those things absolutely helps a guy like me.
Now, you have one of the better entrance themes out there today. How did you go about picking that theme, and what does that song personally mean to you?
All right, so I actually picked the theme because I'm a big fan of Karate Kid, and the whole Best Around deal started because, quite frankly, in pro wrestling, people get to pick their own nicknames. So I figured, since I get to pick what I want to be called, I said, you know what, I'm going to be the best at it. So I just sort of rolled with it. And then the song itself, I mean, it matches the nickname. It all just sort of gelled together. I actually think the first time I ever used it was at Northeast Wrestling. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, man, what if I don't know, it's kind of a goofy song. I don't know if it'll work. Like, what if people laugh about it, whatever. And it ended up being one of the best decisions I ever made because I've been riding that wave of momentum ever since.
Lightning round.
Best wrestler of all time.
Ric Flair.
All right, which is better, a TKO or an RKO?
Ooh, the move or the name?
Either.
Yeah.
RKO is a better move. TKO is a better name.
All right. Now, other than your own entrance theme, what is another song that gets you pumped up?
Another song that gets me pumped up. I like. Let's see. Moose has a really good theme. That Moose. Moose. That one gets pretty fired up.
Okay.
All right. If you weren't a pro wrestler, what would you be?
Oh, man, lost.
All right, can you give us a quote from your favorite movie?
Try not. Do or do not. There is no try.
Dream match for TKO Ryan.
John Cena at WrestleMania.
Where can the fans keep up with you today on social media?
You can get at me on Instagram. It's TK_Orion. It's the same thing on Twitter. It's TK_Orion. You can find me on Facebook. It's TK Orion. I'm on Instagram. It's on Snapchat. TKO. It's 4 times TKO. So get at me on all the social media and keep up with all things the best around.
Thank you so much, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Like I said, I appreciate you guys, and please have me on again sometime.